Okay, hello. Welcome to episode 437 of the Self-Help Podcast with me, Ed Lamb, and my good pal, Sean Orford. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. I mean, I don't really need to ask how you are, actually, because we actually saw each other, didn't we, at the weekend?
We did. That was a breakthrough, wasn't
it? Yeah.
And met little Cooper.
Oh, yeah. Is he here now? Cooper, do you want to come say hello? No, you've met the new member of the family. Gorgeous little Cooper, eh?
Yeah. It's a funny little thing, yeah.
What a delight. Here he is. Hang on. Come on. For those watching on the YouTube channel, you get to see little gorgeous Cooper, and he cute. He slotted into family life quite well here, haven't you, bud? Put him down.
And he can't be much bigger than those guinea pigs.
Well, he's growing by the day, but it's hard to tell. You know, we're talking actually today about kind of kids and how they grow up so fast and all that and move out. And when you're actually living with a human being that's growing like I do with children, or even a dog, you don't get to see them, like the change day by day, because you kind of, it all blurs into one. But I think he's actually, even looking back at photos from a couple of weeks ago, he's growing pretty quickly.
It's amazing when you have a baby, a human baby, and then you're weighing it on a weekly basis, how much they're putting on each week. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And they grow. Incredible, yeah.
So yeah, it's I mean, you'll see him meet me again in a few weeks, I'm sure, and he's sprouting, and before we know it, he'll be off to university, eh? Because that is what we're talking about today. Before we do, liveinthepresent.co.uk for all the show notes and links, as ever. All previous episodes are online. Sean's got a blog post to accompany this episode, which you can read at your leisure as well, and do sign up to the mailing list so you get weekly alerts for the show. Go on then, Sean. So we're talking, the title of this one is Empty Nest and COVID Fears. So what's prompted this one for you?
Well, it's funny because this time of year, I always get an amount. It's usually mums, sometimes it's dads, but usually it's mums that are going through a bit of a crisis. It's the rites of passage thing, because the kids are going off to uni. And it's like, if you got three kids, it's the first one and the last one, the big one, the one in the middle is like, okay. So normally I'd get this, who am I? I'm not a mother anymore. I've got all that kind of stuff. But this year, I've got a series of kids who are actually scared of going. They've been in kind of lockdown type situations. And I guess young people are falling into two categories. They're the people that can't wait to rush out and go to a club and have a good time. And those that are actually terrified. And the thing seems to be that because young people have been at home and been very much sort of closeted in this lockdown kind of atmosphere, suddenly the idea of leaving that and going into halls of residence or a flat somewhere seems terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, just so we're not like isolating anyone from this episode, not everyone goes to uni, but there will come a point for most children in most families where it might be university, it might be an apprenticeship or a job or whatever, or traveling, that kind of thing, where they've got to fly the nest, haven't they? Well, they don't have to, but they tend to. Although it's worth pointing out that I think the average age that kids officially leave home is getting further and further up the charts for various reasons, not just kind of loving the creature comforts of home, but rising house prices and all that kind of stuff.
But there's some areas of psychology are suggesting that 31 is the new 21.
Yeah. I mean,
people might not be leaving until 10 years later.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of period of human history is relatively short, where kind of formal education, school, college, uni is quite like 100, 200, 300 years ago. When would kids have left home, or even going back to kind of, if you go way back in human history, is the idea of kind of leaving home a bit of a strange one for the kind of role of the like adolescent human?
But in extended families, your children were your retirement pension, weren't they? They're the ones that were going to look after you and till the soil when you were past it, and they'd be looking after you. It was yeah, but we stayed. I mean, I can remember Edna, my adopted granny, saying that when she was a child, and she was 96 in 1988. So work out when she was born, 18 something. But she was saying that in the north of Scotland, where she was born, no one went further than you could go there and back on a horse and cart in a day. That was as far as you went. That was the perimeter. And anything else other than that, because there were no trains, no cars, nothing. A major ordeal to go and actually go somewhere, like go to another town or something.
Yeah. And I guess the speed of change in human progress has been pretty rapid, and we're still coming to terms with it, aren't we? And maybe that's why for some parents, when their kids leave home, it's such an ordeal, I guess, and such a big thing, because it's maybe kind of in terms of instinctively, and it's not something that we should be doing. I don't know.
You mean that, like staying with the tribe kind of thing? Yeah.
I mean, it's not something I've got noted down here, but just thinking off the top of my head, maybe to leave the place where you grew up, as is often the case with uni, going to university in particular. Maybe it's something that we're not really hardwired to do. Either do it ourselves or to be on the receiving end and have someone that you love and you're used to living with.
But in most situations, even now across the world, to leave the group is to leave safety, isn't it? I mean, there's always been those odd ones who were the explorers and the adventurers who went off and tried to sail around the world in galleons and, and discovered other countries and things. There's always been that kind of personality. But most people will stay at home.
Last week we talked about midlife crisis, or having a midlife crisis. I think we did touch on the fact that at that kind of age in life. So my kids, my eldest is nearly 10, and I'm nearly 40. So when I'm, 10 years from now is probably roughly the time, assuming we kind of carry on the tradition of higher education and all that stuff, that he'll be moving out and I'll be touching 50 and all that. So we already kind of experience in our family that weird sensation. So when our two kids go out to stay the night at grandparents or have a sleepover at their mates, something like that, the house goes eerily quiet, and it's not altogether a pleasant experience. I mean, for all the kind of, isn't it nice to have a night off and we can have a lie-in tomorrow and blah 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 blah. So that kind of quiet house is a really, really strange thing to be in, and not that pleasant actually. So it's not something that can be kind of easily dismissed, is it? Kind of have change in dynamic.
No, and I think that the issue it does affect men, but it has a greater effect on the woman, on the mother in the house. But that idea that I define myself, the who am I bit, is I define myself by what I do. And if I define myself as being a wife, then being a mother, and then growing these kids up, and then they've all gradually gone, when the last one goes to university or the last one leaves home, it's like, who am I? I mean, like, ideally, this is that magic moment where you get the time to go and deal with and do all the things that you've missed out on and you want to do. But it could just as easily be that it's like, I don't know who I am anymore. So that kind of crisis that can hit is going to hit at that point.
So do people generally kind of prepare for it years in advance, or is it something that is just kind of hit you?
Human beings astound me. I mean, I accept that I'm a human being as well. But I'm astounded by the fact that we don't prepare for things. We don't prepare for retirement. We don't prepare for death. We don't prepare for these things, and it always amazes me when I work with someone who is terminal or potentially terminal, that it's never even occurred to them that they might die. That they're acting like they're surprised that it's happening, but it's going to happen to all of us. Yeah, everybody who's listening to this, I'm sorry, guys, but there's going to come an end point. You know, it's like death and taxes are the two things that are definitely going to be there for us.
Mm.
You know, and it's tough, but it's real. You know.
So, the people that you might be dealing with right now, then, or that are kind of have this enormous change in their roles and life, and kind of in their kind of setup with their household, how are you helping them through it, and how are you?
Well,
you know,
it's trying to take it, because there'll be a period of bereavement, of loss. So, and we know that goes through a kind of a disbelief. I can't come to terms with it. Then there can be like an emotional outpouring, and sometimes there's a bit of anger that comes as well. And the anger is quite useful because that's the energy that shifts us on. But very often, it's getting people to change it from the idea of this is a scary, fearful thing to this could actually be exciting. This could actually be an exciting discovery. Yeah. It could be a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
And that is so important. You know, it's like, okay, who am I? Well, maybe I can do the things that I haven't been able to do because I've had the kid to look after. You know, and suddenly, I can be me. Yeah.
Yeah, this is where a kind of a bucket list can come in handy, that you've maybe started to. I mean, there'll be people listening to this, and people my age even, or at my stage in life, where it's, you know, the last 10 years have flown by for me in terms of that since I've had children on the scene. So the next 10 years will fly by as well, I'm sure. So I should really start planning now, Ish. You know, what I and what we as a couple, me and my wife, want to do once we have all that free time and that energy to use, isn't it? Rather than it just kind of hitting us, like when we say goodbye and we put him on the train to wherever he's off to. We should start planning now, shouldn't we?
Yeah. And it's funny. I notice it here where we are, because we have the universities in Liverpool. How many people on Wirral and around the Northwest suggest to their kids that they could, well, if they went to Liverpool, they could just commute, couldn't they? And they could still stay at home. Yeah, and that's quite a strong thing around here, I see.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of managed to avoid that personally. I went to Newcastle, so and it's a city where I was born in Newcastle, so I kind of had family up there, and I knew the place quite well, so it felt a bit of a home from home. But at the same time, you know, I kind of forced myself, because I'm a bit of a home bird anyway. So I do remember kind of forcing myself to go somewhere far enough away so that I wouldn't be able to like pop in easily and get washing done and stuff like that. I kind of and I remember being quite upset leaving, especially on the day, because, you know, I've got loads of mates here and it's home, and, you know, really close with family. So I remember it being quite an ordeal initially. And for the same for my parents, really, you know, kind of my mum getting quite upset about it. But, you know, sometimes you got to do these things and just kind of force yourself into to do something different, haven't you?
I think that there are times for lots of people where you need to go away and discover yourself. And I think a child leaving home in that sense, even if it's only for a shortened period of time, is really useful. You know, in Australia and with the Aborigines, they used to have what they call walkabout, where kids would get to an age where, you know, the young men, where they would go off and go walkabout, which would mean they go off into the bush, into the country, whatever, with a bow and arrow. And maybe they wouldn't come back for months, but they were going to discover themselves. You know, they'd go away the boy and come back the man, kind of stuff. You know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I should have. Well, I'll see if I can Google some more stuff that I can put in the show notes about how historically we've dealt with that kind of thing. And obviously, it's something that in the last couple of 100 years, it's become more and more important. I know in the blog post you have kind of written about how you can set kind of certain boundaries and rules in terms of how often you're contacting your son or daughter or people that are moving away, just so you kind of know what to expect in terms of how often you might hear from someone.
Yeah, and I think that's useful to kind of get into the idea of contracting that, because depending on who's having the anxiety, there can be this, you know, trying to recontact all the time. But if you're the parent who's feeling anxious about the child can really feel harassed, and it's like, just go away, leave me alone, let me get on with it. I guess if you're in close enough proximity to be able to have Sunday lunches and maybe do some washing, that is a useful point of contact. But very often, if someone like you went up to Newcastle, then the issue is, then these days you could Zoom. I mean, presumably was Zoom around when you went up to?
Oh no, not at all. No, I mean that was 2001. So I mean, I don't think broadband was even on the scene. So it was all we had mobile phones back then. So it was basically just calling and texting. And I remember being quite restricted on, like back in the day, mobile phone contracts. You had like 53 minutes per month for calling landlines and someone else on the same network as you, and 100 texts per month, that kind of thing. That's where we were back then. Do you remember all that stuff?
Yeah.
So I do remember having to kind of ration out phone calls and like having, I'd call my parents or they would call me once a week, and we'd text through the week. So it's like, oh, your 15 minutes are up now, Mum, I've got to go.
Did you actually write any letters?
No, I didn't. No, I know my father-in-law wrote to my wife, because she went to uni in Lancaster. And I know that he did write to her. I don't know if it was monthly or what. I think she still got the letters, actually. Email was on the scene then. We're not that old. But I think for him, it was just kind of quite a therapeutic thing to do, to kind of keep in touch that way, and something that she would look forward to getting the letter in the post, however often it was.
Yeah. It's weird how technology has changed. I can remember pages where I'd carry a pager, which is just like a little tiny device that would say, can you ring so and so, and then I'd have to find a phone and ring them. So I've been paid.
You've also mentioned about how you can kind of have that decision about what to do with the spare room now, because I know mine was kind of kept as it was, and I would come home at Christmas and half terms or whatever, and so I was back fairly regularly. So my room was kind of kept as my room back at home, and I still called it home, for a good while afterwards. But I've got a friend actually who, as soon as he went to university, like literally within days, the parents had redecorated the bedroom of his, just to turn it back into an office or a spare room or something like that. And it was like, straight away.
And that's something again that needs to be negotiated, because it can really make the person who's lost their room feel kind of stateless. They've got no base to go back to. But at the same time, if you're in the family and someone's cleared off for 3 years and you've got this room knocking around, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
So I mean, but it's communication, isn't it? And so that everybody feels okay in this situation that potentially for a lot of people is going to create quite a bit of anxiety.
Yeah, it could do, absolutely. And I guess the last thing to kind of mention is about that kind of changing dynamic between yourself and your partner, your husband, wife, or whatever it is, because all of a sudden you've been so focused on dashing around with your kids, sorting them out, getting them through school and whatever, exams, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden you kind of just left alone with this person that you might have married 20, 30 years prior, and but you haven't really spent full on time with them for a long time. So, we covered this in the midlife crisis stuff last week. But kind of getting to know that person again, is quite a big deal, I assume. I'm kind of at the stage, obviously, where I'm full on parent mode. So, I do live with my wife and I see her every day and say hello and kiss a good night and all that stuff. But it's proper seat of the pants at the moment, parenting, it's just 100 miles an hour. So, I mean, we talked about
now the dog owner as well.
And exactly, do we get a dog just to kind of fill a gap in our lives or what? And is it all going to come tumbling down 10 years from now?
Well, are you booking in a midlife crisis for 10 years time?
Maybe I am. But I mean, you do couples therapy, so is that kind of a big part of what you do at that stage in life for people?
It can be. I think it's one of those things where the dynamic of a family changes so much that everybody does an audit. And even the other kids that are left are thinking, how does this work? And then you do get the thing of, well, I want the bedroom. If they're not using it, I want that, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, the dynamics changing all around.
Yeah.
And I have known kids that have seen it's so devastating when one child has gone to university. They've said, I'm not going to university. It's tragic. I can't do it.
Wow.
That kind of stuff. It's fun.
Yeah, I guess one of the key messages here is as we've mentioned, is to kind of plan ahead and look further down the line to what's coming for you. So don't let this stuff take you by surprise.
Yeah, I think that's the key to it. That's what I mean about I'm always amazed at how people act with such surprise at things that are so obvious. So look, I never thought that happened to me, kind of thing. And like, it obviously will happen to you because that's what happens to us as people.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, but it's always quite extraordinary how people just don't consider, so it's good to live in the moment and good to live in the present and appreciate the present, but you do have to have an awareness of what's going to happen next.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we have talked as well in recent weeks about kind of what to do in a crisis. So yes, sometimes things do come out of the blue, don't they? And you can you can have a general awareness of things that things will go wrong at some point. But I guess with stuff like this, it's knowing that, some things are going to change. And I guess also that you can kind of look forward to it in some ways. I'm not looking forward to not having my lads around all the time and the amount of time I get to spend with them. I'm not really, because I do quite enjoy it, as annoying as they are. I'm quite enjoying this period of life, but it's also possible to look forward to a future where they're not as around as much. And there's other things that I could be doing, on my own or with my wife, and enjoying those moments when I get to see them every few months or whatever, when they come home or when we go get to visit them, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and then you've got grandchildren to look forward to then.
Yeah, apparently so. All right. I don't know how far ahead we need to plan this stuff, but yeah, I might not get too excited about that just yet. It does look good fun though, being a grandparent, I must say, if you do it right.
Yeah, because you can have all the fun without the responsibilities, isn't it? It's
exactly.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Anything else you want to mention, Sean?
No, I'm okay. I mean, I think that the blog is worth a read if you're in that situation, looking around it. But my resource for the week is to go and have a Google around John Bowlby attachment theory, because the whole kind of Bowlby thing is it's a really insightful piece of work John Bowlby did, and there's loads of books out there. If you go for the original John Bowlby book, which has gone out of print, and you can get it from places like Amazon, but it's going to cost you about between £28 and £40 a copy. And there are other versions of it, and you can even get it on PDF kind of thing.
Okay.
But it is worth a read, because the thing is that from an attachment point of view, not only are we looking at our children, but we're looking at ourselves as well, and how we were attached and how we're affected by things. So it's quite a good thing for families to have an awareness of.
Cool. I'm going to mention a couple of movies because I love to mention relevant movies. One is The Bucket List, which is Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman. Good laugh.
Yeah.
A couple of old timers. It kind of And also, I was just thinking, there's another Jack Nicholson movie called About Schmidt, where it's again that later in life, I think his wife passes away, and he ends up going on a road trip in a big camper van. Actually, so I'll like that one, Sean. It's about a bit of a journey of self-discovery for him. It's funny but poignant and all that kind of stuff. So About Schmidt, both worth a look as well.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right,
okay,
well done. Okay, Sean, you have yourself a good week.
And you, and maybe next week we could do one from Gino De Campo, the camper van.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's book that in. That'd be fun. Let's do it.
Yeah.
overlooking the
Okay.
sea or something like that. All right, cool. Thanks, Sean.
You take care.
See you,
See
everyone.
ya.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.